Welcome everyone. My name is Melissa San Vicente and I'm the Associate Director here at the Achuchas. Welcome to our 16th annual Celebrating Words Festival. Thank you for joining us for our next workshop. We have Fire Limpias and Barridas with Erika Buenaflor. We will be exploring and learning the ancient and contemporary Mesoamerican practices of using fire limpias and barridas, sweep limpias, to cleanse and prepare sacred spaces for platicas, heart-straightening talks, other types of limpias and ceremonies, and guidance from elements, ancestors, and other supernatural guides. This is also part of our Indigenous in Us, embracing ancestral knowledge and sharing the beauty of practice project. Erika Buenaflor has 20 years of practicing as a curandera, mentoring with curanderos and curanderas in the Mayan, Yucatecan jungle and studying curanderismo in academia. She is the writer of Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo, Curanderismo Soul Retriever, Sacred Energies of the Sun and Moon, and Animal Medicine. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will be passing it on to Erika Buenaflor.
So, hi everybody, and thank you to the Achuchas and everybody that has been just working so hard to put this together, the Word Festival. Oh my God, thank you so much for inviting me to present on Limpias and Curanderismo. As you may know, my name is Erika Buenaflor, and I am just super elated to present and to be a part of this. So just to give you a little bit of an overflow of what we're going to be doing, an idea of everything, we are going to start with the white fire limpia. And for today, we're going to be focusing on what are known as barridas, sweeps, and the essence of, and of course I'll explain a lot more too. The essence of barridas are essentially, it's like sweeping any energies that no longer serve us, anything that's stuck. It could be with like lack of creativity, any toxic energies, any illnesses, things like that. So we're going to be talking about barridas, and we're also going to be using, talking about fire limpias, and I'm going to be demonstrating. I'm going to try to teach you as much as I can in these 2 hours, and also try to leave like a little bit of time for questions too. I'll be very mindful of time because I know that there are other presenters that are coming on, and I don't want to cut into anyone's presentation. So we are going to start with a white fire limpia, and the white fire limpia, what it is, it's done a lot of times for many things, right? I like to do it a lot of times to open up ceremonies and also to close ceremonies as well. And it's a very simple recipe. It's a splash of regular rubbing alcohol, and there's also approximately about 2 hands of Epsom salt and dry herbs. Doesn't matter what kind of herbs they are, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're using today. All herbs have cleansing properties, and of course, they have additional gifts. Whatever you use though for your white fire limpia, the herbs have to be dry, okay? It's the understanding when like you burn something, it changes then into ash. It helps to transmute the energy, change something, recycle the energy, right? To something heavy, to something lighter, like ash. And just to tell you a little bit too, you can read more about my background in cleansing wax Divination, my first book, and I also have a free video on my website about me. I want to just teach you today about material rather than tell you about me. So something to think about that. Curanderismo, it's a very practical practice. We work with nature. So if you look at something like, oh, okay, this feels heavy, like energetically, like crystal or like some kind of plant or something, I should probably burn it or bury it where nothing is growing. Listen to that, okay? Because it's something that we learn to look at how nature works. So with the fire, what you're thinking of too, if something is solid and you're putting it into the fire, then it turns into ash, then it's a lighter substance, right? So when I use the white fire limpia to begin ceremonies, it's essentially used to cleanse spaces. I love using white fire limpias because, and something too, so I mentioned that you need a couple handfuls of Epsom salt, a splash of rubbing alcohol, and dry herbs. And you need a pot that you are not going to use for cooking, okay? Please, 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 please do not have your pots that you use for your white fire limpia with your other pots. These pots, if you use them for cooking, it's like you're eating the energy that's been used to cleanse things, right? You don't want to do that. And one time I had a client call me, and she's like, oh my God, he was like irate that day, he was yelling, and he was out of nowhere, and I was like, I was me. Like, so please put them separate. Keep your magical supplies, everything that you use, your pahwawtztli, your sacred tools for limpias. You want to make sure that they are always kept separate from your kitchen supplies, you put them separate where those are your magical supplies, those are your limpia supplies, okay? So a pot that is used, I like to use cast iron steel pots, or you're not necessarily eating from it, but it's just something to keep in mind in terms of like what kind of pot you use. Try to avoid Teflon, but you're not cooking from it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I like to use white fire limpias to clear spaces. They clear spaces, and it comes from an understanding that when we have a white fire limpia, we are clearing spaces, and it's also an ofrenda, an offering to our living spaces. It's understanding that the offering for the living space, that the living space are alive. It's still used today. A lot of indigenous communities, a lot of my mentors, they came from the Yucatan. My four principal mentors, they were very much into Yucatec Mayan practices, and the Maya were, especially in the Yucatan, were very resilient of letting go of their indigenous practices. And there's a few too in Oaxaca that are still holding on to it, and a lot of us who are like, we're keeping them. It comes from understanding that our living spaces are alive. So just as we take care of ourselves, we give ourselves good food, we give ourselves just basically we shower, we cleanse ourselves, we give ourselves limpias, we also give that to our living spaces as well. So just keep that in heart and mind that when you do the limpias, hopefully it's not like, oh my God, I feel horrible, I need a limpia. No, limpias honestly can be very practical. And I actually posted about this a couple days ago on my IG, Erika.Buenaflor -curandera, about practical ways of limpias, because limpias are holistic ways of cleansing, and they really should be at like a daily, like, you know, taking care of ourselves, like on a daily self-care, rather than we wait till we get like feel really bad and then we give ourselves a limpia, including our living spaces. Because when we take care of ourselves and our living spaces, our limpias take care of us. So once we're done, you know, while the Wi-Fi limpia is going, I'm gonna sing a song. It's in Yucatec Mayan, and I'm going to translate it in between in English. And I also like to do the white fire limpias to close ceremonies to again recognize sacred space, to recognize the space for holding space for us, and also everybody here. And a lot of times in ceremonies, you know, energies get released, which is a good space to do that, right? So it's also another way to transmute any energies that needed to be changed, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and light the white fire limpia. And for this recipe, I use chamomile. Along with just being a general way to cleanse, chamomile changes any misfortunes to great fortunes. So it's something that I love to use in a lot of things. I drink it all the time. So I'm gonna go ahead and carefully put a match. I like to use matchsticks. You know, my mentors taught me that the wood, it has a heart, it has an essence, so use a matchstick, so I do. Sun. Understand. See. Sacred gratitude. Sun. Understand. Sacred gratitude. Sun. Understand. Speak. Sacred gratitude. Sun. Understand. Speak. Sacred gratitude. Understand. Speak. Sacred gratitude. So I will talk a little bit more about this in a second. My husband's going to take the pot, water in it, but I just wanted to we'll talk about, you know, when you're doing fire limpias such as this, I always like to keep an eye too on the fire because the way the fire burns, like for example, when it started burning initially, it was burning very evenly. And what that indicates is that, you know, it's a good opening pathways, it's even cleansing, and then it started burning towards me. That's in the affirmative. It's giving me extra cleansing, and it's just a nice way. We'll talk more about that too, and we'll also talk about like reading the pot after it is. So pahwawtztli, and that's PAHWAW. TZTLI refers, it's in Nahuatl, and it refers to the sacred tools that we're using. And I integrate both Central Mexican practices and Maya practices because I have two mentors that, although I met them in the Yucatan, they did identify themselves with Nahuatl traditions as well. And again, you can watch my video, or you can read Cleansing Rectificatismo for that as well. So the pahwawtztli, it can be man-made tools. It could also be tools that we're going to be working with, like for example, the fire is one, the herbs that we use, the lemons, the eggs. It's tools that we use for our limpias as well, and it also is the same tools that helps cleanse other limpias as well. You know, for this presentation, we're going to be working with dry herbs and fresh flowers, and basically the difference in why you would use dry herbs or fresh flowers. And of course, you know, pahwawtztli can be an egg, an onion, garlic, which are very common things to also use in barridas and sweets. So one of the things too that I want to mention right from the bat, if you are going to perform a barrida, a sweet on yourself, please, and you know, and okay, well, first let me say this. If you have done it without doing this, don't worry, okay? The worst thing you can do is like, oh my God, did I do it wrong? Well, no, it's gonna happen, don't worry. That will only make things like just not good, you know, because that's energy of that. When you are doing a barrida or sweetening yourself, you know, something that we do is we get red yarn. The magical red yarn. So much to do with this. You know, just I say go to Michael's and get a stock of this. You're going to be practicing limpias and curanderismo. And what you do is you're going to tie it around the palm of your hand. So what you want to do is you want to block your hand chakra. And you know, somebody told me one time a while back that like, oh, that's nice. You talk about chakras and things like that. So what are we going to learn about Mesoamerican? And of course, I was talking about other things too. But our ancestors, and still today, we know we have energy centers. We know there's energy around us and coming through us. They have different names for them, but they are aware of energy centers, and they do say to put it right here. I'm going to come up closer to the camera just in case. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Okay, you want to make sure you block the palm of your hand where the heart chakra is at. Okay, so anytime you're going to give yourself a limpia with a huevo, with an egg, or with flowers or herbs, please use this. What this does, the red yarn, it's believed, and you put it on your dominant hand. The dominant hand is usually where you do the barrida or the sweet. Okay, that's the hand that you use for that. You want to put it on your dominant hand. Now, some mentors, they may say something else, and I'm not here to tell you, oh, that's wrong, that's right, that's wrong, that's right. No, you know, if you feel called to do something else, listen to it. Listen to your intuition. So red yarn, if you're going to give yourself a barrida. And you know, it's one of the things too that I want to mention. Fire is probably one of the most common tools in curanderismo traditions. It's used a lot of the times, like if someone is giving someone a barrida, usually, of course, the herbs have to be dry, the flowers have to be dry. What's done is we put whatever we use to do the sweep, and we put into the fire. And that's another way to basically stop any kind of affliction, any kind of streaks of bad energy. It transmutes it even deeper. Okay, so that's another way we use fire, and I'll be showing you some other ways that we're gonna be using fire to start beginnings, like we just did it right now to honor, this class, to honor all of you, to hold sacred space for that, and also it's called termination rites. In mine, well, we don't say that term, but that's what it's identified as, termination rites, to start, and when there's an end, there's always a beginning. So one of the things too is before you work, and this includes with the egg too, with anything that you use, and this is something that I always do, before I work, and I start my sessions, or I have my tools laid out, and I connect with the etheric essence. Like, I've already worked with the orange and the yellow honeysuckles, and, just put them here to your heart, and please connect with the plants. Plants, especially, the flowers, they have a spirit essence. Connect with them and thank them for helping cleanse you, your friends, your family, your clients, whoever you're going to give yourself a barrida with flowers or herbs, and even eggs too. Like take a moment to connect with it. Right before I do my egg limpias with my clients, I hold it and I say a prayer. I recognize my infinite presence as the I am, and then I say my prayers as I'm doing the barrida. So one of the things too is that when you are doing the barrida, and this is part of the understanding, I talk about this in Cleansing Rites of Buenaflor, is that when you're saying with the barrida, I'm going to use a general saying, like a general prayer when you're doing the barrida. The prayers, what we say, the spoken word is also part of the offering. My mentors taught me that the prayers are those prayers are really only for the client. It's not for anyone else's ears. So I'm going to use something general when I do this, and don't worry about like, what is she saying? What did I say? It's honestly, make up your prayer. Connect with your infinite presence. And, if it's like, please thank you, Barridas, for cleansing Joe, for clearing any blocks in his pathways, muchas gracias, like whatever it is, connect with it, be in that moment, be in your space. Don't try to have something like, oh, what did this person say? If your mentor teaches you a prayer, then okay. But always connect with what you're tuning into, what that person needs, and the plant as well. So, when you're deciding on which herb or plant, just generally which plant you're going to use, again, work with your intuition, and also try as much as possible to use what you have accessible, in the sense of, the plants that may be growing in your yard. All plants, they have spiritual gifts, they do. And if you're going to be using barridas, like for example, for flowers, you want to use something that's a little bit more hardy. If you use certain flowers that are really delicate, they might fly away completely. Honeysuckles, for example, are a little bit, and you want to try it too before you do it, just to make sure they're not like everywhere, especially if you intend on doing other things, which I'm going to show you, deeper practices with the flowers or burning them, and you're not like picking them up everywhere. So work with things that you have accessible to, and if you don't have anything growing where you live, where at the grocery stores, what is accessible there? The reason for that is because the more and more we work with certain plants, we are going to be connecting, and we take that moment to connect to their spirit essence. They'll talk to us. They'll talk to us, and if we burn them in the fire, they'll give us more messages, and we'll start learning more about them and how to work with them and how to offer them in limpias with other people. So take that moment to connect with them. And picking the flower or the herb, one of the things to try, I know this is like, sometimes it's hard, this is something that my mentors would always encourage me, try as much as possible to wake up on those days when you can, or maybe you're up all night, I don't know, is try to get them when they have the dew, morning dew, not night dew, because night dew, that's that can be a scary dew. I'll mention that. So the morning dew, it's actually in Yucatec Mayan, it's known as ITZ, ITZ, and it's believed to have magical powers of cleansing. It's to be like the essence of purity, the essence of light. So it's okay if they dry, but it's what they teach you is that at the time in the early morning you pick the herbs, and those are the herbs you take baños with baths. Those are the ones you do limpias with. Those are the ones that are blessed, and that they bless your clients or you when you do that too. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of the day. Now, evening dew, this is something that I even heard from my family. My abuelita would always like, with my little baby cousins, would say like, "Tapa la cabeza, cover the head." It's night dew. Like, I don't know, it's dangerous. So night dew is not the dew you want to get. The morning dew is the one that you want. That's the eats. So for this, for barridas, we're gonna be working with Florida water and charged water, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Florida water, blessed water, sacred water, charged water. So Florida water, you can purchase it, and I wanted to show you what it looks like too. You can purchase it online, or you can purchase it at botanicas or a lot of metaphysical stores. And also like CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid. If you ask where their ethnic section is at, they often carry Florida water. Often a lot cheaper than metaphysical stores. So you can also make Florida water too. This is one that I made with a lot of the spices, and I will tell you, the Florida water that you make is so much more potent. Yeah. So I have a video actually on my IG and TikTok on how to make Florida waters. It's not this Friday, but the Friday before. So you can look to see. It's really simple. It's really, really simple. And I'm the last 3 ones, because I'm having a class tomorrow on water limpias. When I had how to make rose water, how to make Florida water, and then yesterday I did one on limpia soaps. So I have a lot of neat little things of how to make things on your own. So so the Florida water, you can buy it or you can make it, and then the charged water I have here. And what I mean by charged water, it's charged by us. One very simple way, and I cover many different things in my book, Cleansing Rets of and of course, in tomorrow's water limpia class. One very simple way to do it is to get a cobalt blue bottle. I like to do this, and I always have a cobalt blue bottle, and I put it on a crystal, or I put it on my windowsill, because it gets the soul energy, the tonali of the sun, and also the magical energy of the moon, of the Metzi, the Ul. So I put this, and I also put it on an amethyst cluster. Another very simple way to do that is to charge it with your hands. Just put your hands over it and set that intention. Send love to it. Thank the water for cleansing you, your friends, your family, your clients, and it's charged. Another way to use sacred water is believed to come from sources that a lot of curanderos, or aka shamans, have thought of as being blessed, like the cenotes in the Yucatan was believed to be blessed water, or sacred water. And then traditionally, sacred water. So traditionally, blessed water is water that has been blessed by a Christian priest. So those are the different type of waters that you can use for your barridas, for your sweeps. For this, we're mainly going to be working with Florida water, and we're going to be using with charged water. And I'll show you a little bit about what we're going to do. When I have charged water, what you can do is you can put it in a bowl like this, and you can also use a spray. For this, I put Florida water in here, because there's different ways to do the barridas with, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Some people are shy, when people are new, especially for when they come to the sound bath and I'm giving them a limpia, I use the spray, because some people are like, "Oh, you're going to spit on me?" I'll talk about that, because that is actually how it's normally done, with blowing. So if you're going to use dry, if you're going to use like a dry bundle of sage, what I recommend to use is to use a spray or to use the blowing method. And honey, I forgot my God. Do we have it here? So thank you. So you can use the blowing method, or you know, one of the things too is if you are going to if you are not going to be using the blowing method or some kind of feather fan, you want to use the rattle, because it's like you're thinking of like barrida, like you're like taking that energy away. And I'll explain it to you as I'm doing. I'm going to show you various ways. So it's something to think about conceptually with blowing, and I'll show you what it is. The blowing is very simple. What you do is you put a little bit in your mouth and you make sure that it doesn't go past your teeth, okay? So it looks like this, and then you blow it out. Okay? And it shouldn't be like this. Like, well, I can't do it anyway, but I see some people and it's like that. It's like, just practice doing it, because if it's going past your teeth, then it's getting a lot of, it's just like, it's not gonna blow. So you're thinking that like you're blowing it out, you're blowing away the energy. If you're using, for example, if you're not going to be doing a blowing method, you're gonna use a spray, then you do want to consider using a rattle to rattle the energy, shake the energy, and then whatever it is that you use, like for example, in barridas, it's believed that the flowers, it goes into the, if you're going to use herbs or flowers, whatever you're using for barrida, it gets transferred into that item. So if you're using an egg or garlic, or you're using onion, or using a huevo and egg, whatever you're going and you're getting it, it goes into that item. It's transferred into it, right? That's why a lot of people afterwards, they put it in the fire to transmute it. And what you do, and I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. I'm going to explain to you everything. So I just want to mention a few things too. The first thing is be practical in this. Don't stress if you thought you had something, and you know, like this morning, I asked my husband to get pineapple sage, and I didn't tell him that I needed it for my flowers. And he got me a beautiful bundle of pineapple sage, and I was like, oh no, it doesn't have flowers, honey. So I was like kind of looking outside, and like literally right when I went outside, of course, I found honeysuckles like this. They were like, hey, use us. And so be practical in this, you know, whatever it is, you have what you need. You have to start with that understanding, because faith in knowing that you know that you have what you need is important in doing the limpias, okay? Your faith in being able to facilitate healing and limpias for other people are going to help the other person or yourself if you're doing it for yourself, okay? And of course, as I mentioned, listen to your intuition. And one of the things too, if you're going to use, I usually like to have a bundle of dry something. I like to have them, and I have different ones. I have a closet where I have a lot of dry herbs, depending on something. And sometimes like I get something and I don't know why, but I'm guided to get something and get a bundle of something for someone. And then later that week I have a client, they tell me, oh, this is what's going on. And I'm like, oh, I have the perfect bundle for you. Listen to your intuition. So a difference with using fresh plants or dry plants is fresh, it basically absorbs it, right? And I'm going to show you a way how to follow up with that too, for like different nuances of what you do and how you do it too, and working with salt, because salt is also a very common item in curanderismo traditions. It absorbs the energy, and one of the things, if you use dry, it absorbs it as well, but you want to use dry too. A lot of times, if you want to use you want to do some further divination work, and you want to see, and you want to, of course, as I mentioned, stop something, stop the energy of something just right there, and also tune into what else may be happening. Okay, so with flowers, you know, flowers generally they're used to attract love, their happiness, their joy, their creativity. Make sure we're good on time here. They're used for creativity. And, you know, I love using flowers. Flowers are very traditional to use in springtime, because the springtime, it's believed that everything, that there's a renewal, that there's excitement. So if you have some flowers out there, you know, oh my God, and you want to get some creativity in you, because along with think of this too, it's not just necessarily about like, limpias aren't necessarily just about like taking energy that you don't want. The flowers also give us that joy, that happiness, that creativity when we are doing it. It's taking something there too, and it's giving us that as well. So it's a really beautiful way of thinking that too when you're working with flowers, of bringing joy and happiness in us as well. And so, and a lot of times, in a lot of parts of the world, there's a lot of flowers that grow around the world, especially if you have cacti, if you have succulents. A lot of, very resilient in the Southwest, and different parts of the world, of course, too. If you grow them in your house, flowers can grow pretty much a lot. You can adjust it with the temperature in your house. So, as I mentioned, keep in mind that you want to test it too, make sure that the petals aren't delicate and they're not going to fly away everywhere, especially if you're going to use them to do some additional work with that, right? So honeysuckles are really amazing, and are really amazing to help prevent, along with bringing joy, happiness, because all flowers, it's a big thing of using flowers, right? Happiness, joy, and love. Is they have additional gifts. The additional gifts with honeysuckles are they help us to eliminate mind chatter, and they also help us to be in the present. Okay, it's it's something that when I was a little girl, I used to get them and I get it out and like suck on the little honeysuckle to get the sweetness out of it. It's like being in that joy of doing that. It's just the sweetness of this, and of being in that joy and that innocence. And another thing too is to look at the color the flowers have too. Orange and yellow, along with happiness, they also bring creativity as well. So that's another good thing too, is like look at the flowers and tune into them, and again, take a moment to connect with the flowers, to talk to them and find out, what other gifts that they have. So for this, I'm gonna ask my husband to come on up. So, my love, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. My name is Miguel Buenaflor, and today I am going to be. What am I going to be?
What are you? You're to produce. You're helping with the back.
I'm also helping with the background, but I put all the tech stuff for a little bit of help, of course. And I'm here to help demonstrate.
And I just want to say the people at the Divination are amazing. You guys are bomb. So cool. So easy to work with you guys. Love you. All right. So, my love, could you do me a favor? Can you start by lying down here, please? Okay. So I'm going to show you different ways of how to do the barrida. And, okay. So for this, I'm going to show you, actually, let me break this up because I want to show different ways of doing this as well. Well, okay. I'll show them in different examples. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bowl of water, right? The charged water that I've been having there, that I've been blessing, and I've been using it with my cobalt blue bottle and putting it on top of an amethyst cluster. For a cleanse, when you do this, I'm going to show you first with the floored water, and I'm going to also do it with the bowl of water when I actually do it for him. When you're blowing with someone, one of the things that my mentors always taught me, if the person is lying down, you want to make sure you get the head and you get the heart, the abdomen area, generally like the genitalia and knee area and the feet, okay? So it's not like precise science, it's just like certain areas that you definitely want to get. You always want to get the head. If someone is sitting, you want to get their back, their spine, the back of their heart chakra. Okay, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay. Now, after you do this too, and I like to use a rattle. If I'm using a feather fan, you don't have to use a rattle. It's just another way of shaking energy along with the blowing, because the blowing is like getting all the energy. And I run the rattle. Okay. So you can actually do a spray of water as well, and you can just spray them as well. So I'm also going to show you now the floored water if you don't want to do this, the blowing method. Not spitting, blowing. So what you want to do is you get and the same thing. Okay, so now the barrida. I'm gonna get my bowl of water. See, I can't see it. But what I'm just gonna bring it up so you can see it, but it's just one because it's gonna spill. So what you do is you get a little bit, you put the flowers in, and you put a little bit in and you dab it, right? You can also spray the flowers as well. And sometimes you could sometimes, you know, I've seen my mentors do it just with the flowers, like putting water on the flowers. You know, I want to show you like different ways of doing it. So you start from the head and you go all the way, one way down. And I like to get here on this side. So then you can do either the blessed water, you get your blessed water and you seal the limpia. You know, do you need to seal the limpia, the barrida? I like to do that too. It just seals the energy with it, and you can use an oil or you can use a blessed water. So I'm going to show you what it looks like if you use an oil. It should be an oil that you have a connection with. Okay, I can't tell you what that is, but it's an oil that you have a connection with. For this, I'm using my purification and release oil. So I definitely have a connection with it. So I put a little bit in my hand, or you can get just the charged water. And I always do the third eye, the throat, the heart chakra. Sometimes I'll also do the crown. So just get a little bit with the finger. And I put a little bit here. Third eye, throat. Sometimes I'll just do something beautiful and gentle like this, because sometimes it's nice to just have a nice touch. Of course, it's, you know, just and tune into how you feel guided. You're welcome. So before you leave, see where my is. Okay. So with this, so this limpia, well, you can do various things with it, you know. So think about this. You think about what virtues does the flower have? What are the additional gifts, right? So for example, if someone is experiencing, this is the one that I actually use, I'm going to give it to my husband here, and I'm going to put it into the bag. You think about this, if someone's experiencing depression, flowers would be a very good way to do barrida for them, right? Because it lifts away that heaviness and it brings in the happiness and the joy. And I also mentioned that, you know, like you think about this in a practical way. It's like, oh, okay, like how does that flower make you feel? Like when I saw it, I was like, wow, you know, that was my, it was happiness, about happiness to me. That's what flowers do. So connect with that, like what does it do? And then if you want, look it up on the internet and like look at other spiritual meanings, but first connect with it like intuitively. So with this, and I'm going to show you how to integrate salt as well, because salt is a very common practice in curanderismo. And I've been teaching this more in my advanced limpia classes on the last Sunday of every month, using salt. So I like using sea salt. You can use regular salt. I like sea salt. It's just pure. It's not processed. It doesn't have a bunch of other like iodine and stuff like that. So what I'm going to have my husband do is because he's also a musician too, and he writes his music, and he's going to be coming out with his album sometime early next year. Yay! And he writes his own music. So this is something like anytime he gets stuck, he's have like different things. He does like drawings and different things, but also with this limpia, also to encourage him, to inspire him to like any blocks, any doubts about his music, about his writing, and he's gonna like just connect it. And what I'm gonna have him do, what I recommend is get 3 plates. You could just, and I recommend to use plates that are recyclable. It's just, because a lot of these items we either burn or we bury in the earth, and you want to make sure it's earth friendly, please. So what I'm going to have them do is I'm going to have them break up the honeysuckles into 3 piles, and I'll show you just a little bit what I mean by that. So into 3 piles here, and then what I'm gonna have him do is put these 3, one of it's gonna be under his head, one of it is gonna be approximately like the abdomen, heart area, and the other is gonna be the genitalia. It's pretty much getting those 3 spots. And then I'm gonna have him put sea salt on these 3 plates covering the flowers. Most importantly, covering the flowers. Okay, and then afterwards, I'm going to have them tonight. I'm going to have them connect with the essence of these honeysuckles and basically connect with him. And, any like just to help with creativity, with passion, with joy. Notice that you're singing always from that space of like happiness. That's why we do what we do. We do it first with happiness because it makes us happy. And then what he's going to do once these things are dry, and that's how you know. You're gonna know because after I'm gonna have him connect with that, and then after he puts the salt in it, he's gonna get 3 of these and then put 3 of them on top. So what it does is once this is covered with salt with the flowers, it continues to absorb any monkey chatter, any doubt, any fear, because that's what honeysuckles do, right? It's like just helping us to stop with the honeysuckle and helps us to be in the present. Connect with the beauty of the honeysuckles and the grace of them. So the salt over it continues to absorb any residuals of any energies within us of thinking that. And then putting the honeysuckles that he's connected with on top of the salt, it's another marker first to just remember that joy. Remember that joy of why he's doing what he's doing. And when the flowers are completely dry, I'm going to have him get everything here that's on here, including the initial ones, the salt, this on top, and he's going to bury it. Because it's salt, you want to make sure that you put it somewhere where nothing is growing, because salt can kill, our plants. So yeah, where nothing is growing. And of course, you always wanted to you want to use, as I mentioned, recyclable plates for this. And if you're doing this for a client or a friend, it's always nice to have, I always like to use recyclable bags that I use from vegetables and stuff, because you want to give it to them, because it does have energy and you want that energy contained. I like to just hide it. It's like, okay, this is the one that has been used, and then the one that hasn't been used, maybe what I like to do then is get a little towel, a little wet towel, and put it around the end for the plants so they know which one they're going to be using thereafter. So, yay, here you go, honey. You're welcome. It's curanderismo and ninjas, it can really be so much fun and very practical, right? So let's see where we're at here. Okay, so one of these things too is to understand that that I showed you is a way that it absorbs the energy and it continues to absorb any residuals of any doubt. onto the fresh honeysuckles and the salt. So herbs. Herbs, as I mentioned, are generally just absolutely fabulous to help they clear any dense energies. They're cleansers, right? And of course, as I mentioned, the chamomile, which is an herb, the flowers, they help to reverse misfortunes to great fortunes. They have additional gifts, right? And when you are doing, when you're, the same thing too, when you're working with any herbs, take a moment, just as you did with the flowers, to connect with them. Put them next to your heart, thank them for whatever that is, make them unique to you, connect with them. If you're working with someone else, still connect with them, have the other person connect with them. They will always work, the essence of the plant will always work with you deeper when you take a moment to connect with them, okay? So, as I mentioned, divination with dry herbs, they are basically to help us to divine and understand situations concerning opening of pathways and the degree of them. That's why we know of okay, has this pathway, in Spanish, right? It's to understand how much of a pathway has been opened. That's a really nice thing. It's very, very common to see that too. And I do that as well, is when we want to find out how much has something been opened after the barrida. The reason for that is if there's still, for example, a lot of gook on pots, and you can see here, I'm going to bring this pot up to the camera. You see here, this pot right now, it's completely nice and clean, okay? When a lot of times, and when you are doing divination work, what you want to do is you want to leave the pot soaking for 5 minutes. If it still has a lot of stuff caked on, that means more limpias need to be done. Okay, that means that more limpias need to be done. They need to be done cyclically. As I mentioned in tomorrow's water limpia class, I'll mention it now. I do mention it in Cleansing Gratitude and Ladies One, my third book, Sacred Energy of the Sun and Moon. What I mean by cyclically, it's a cycle that we are connected to in the sense of something that's practical and works for us, right? Whether it's once a month, when it's our self-care day, or maybe it's Sunday afternoon when we're done with all of our chores, maybe it's Friday, the start of our weekend. It's something that we do regularly, repetitively in cycles. We need to, when it's something like a lot of it's stuck, or if limpia comes out really dirty and musty and just little specks on it everywhere. When limpias need to be done, they should be done cyclically, every Friday or every 2 Fridays or every month, or just cycles of things, and maybe daily too. We cleanse ourselves with floral water or rose water. So that's something when you're reading that, if pathways have been open, you want to do it cyclically to continue to open pathways. Another thing is to understand whether something has been released and the degree it has been released. Because sometimes we get energy that attached to us, or we allow attachment of energies. It's always an allowance. And we want to see the degree of how much of it has been transmuted, has been cleared by that. So we look at the pot to see how much of it is stuck on there. And that's a way of doing Barridas to understand how much of it has been cleared. And of course, always dry plants, right? Or you can also use, garlic. Sometimes garlic too, certain garlics, if they're somewhat dry, that they will burn. But it's usually dry herbs when you use that. So also the causes and methods of an illness to heal or to clear away an illness, because as we're going to show you in a little bit, is when I do a limpia, for someone is, I'm going to do a bundle here, but I have already a little something separate, so then I'm going to use the same bundle to do the sweep, the limpia, but I already have a little part separate from it. Usually when you dry them together, you want to put them together and then tie them, right? So you get a nice strong bundle for the barrida, for the sweep. Is after you've done the barrida, you give them, or yourself, you can do it for yourself too, You take that little piece that you have separate from it and you feed the fire. You feed the fire and you ask questions. And you listen to the fire. You watch the direction of fire. And I have some guidelines that I'll talk about, in a second right now in terms of how to interpret the fire. And I always say, please always just try to develop a relationship with the fire first and foremost. The more and more you work with fire and develop a relationship, a respectful relationship with the fire, the more and more you will understand why it burns a certain way, what it's telling you, because fire does have amazing insight. Fire was believed by our ancestors, and still to this day, a lot of the indigenous beliefs and practices believe that fire serves as a portal, a gateway to see things that are unseen, a gateway to connect with our ancestors, a gateway to connect with deceased loved ones, a gateway into the non-ordinary realms, the upper world, the middle world, the underworld, and obtain medicine from there. So that is what you're doing when you're feeding the fire, is you're accessing these non-ordinary realms to connect and get information, okay? The fire is strong, and the fire has its own essence too, but it also acts as a portal, a gateway. And it's, you could do many things. I taught a whole class on this, but there's so many ways that I'm actually working on a book right now, Ancestral Veneration. It's going to be my next one that's going to be coming out in 2023, how to connect with our ancestors with fire limpias. That's a way that, you say a prayer, you bring in, for the Dia de los Muertos, for the Day of the Dead, of connecting with our ancestors, of working with fire that way. It's a beautiful, beautiful, sacred gift for us to use. So also understanding soul retrieval and soul release dynamics. Soul retrieval, my second book, Curanderismo, Soul Retrieval, I go into, if you want to know what is soul retrieval, you can learn a lot more there, but I'm going to tell you just the basics of it, right? So soul retrieval is the understanding that our tonali, also known in Quetzal as Chuyel, that our tonali, our soul, that all of us, we come with soul energy. And what they did back in the days, our ancestors, is at the bathing rite, they would actually, honor, the crown, the forehead, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus. And this is actually in the Florentine Codex where it talks about this, and also Duran talks about this. They're both 16th century ethno-historians that talk about these traditions, because they interviewed a lot of the indigenous peoples from this time. Is they would actually seal, the soul energy, and they would ask the creatrix to seal the soul energy into the baby and to strengthen the soul energy. And it was believed that in different parts of days, that there was different qualities of tonali, soul energy, and depending on who you were and the things that you did, our soul energy can, and this is specifically tonali because there's different types of soul energy, animated soul energy. But I'm speaking specifically of tonali. And this was in the hair, this was in the fingernails, this was in our blood, this was also in our bones as well. And very much in the third eye, in the crown, and you can see a lot of the artwork too. If you ever go to Chichen Itza and you get to see like what the hall of the warriors look like, they're like warriors, they have a little flower on their forehead. It's super cute, so the flowers are believed to actually also have soul energy, that's what there was on their third eye. So it's believed that throughout our life, we experience traumas. And traumas can happen, there can be various kinds of traumas. It could be a car accident, it can be sexual abuse, it could be something that's like discontinuous, being in a job that we absolutely hate. That can be definitely a soul loss. And when we are doing our work, Limpias are very good to do soul retrieval work along with connecting and loving those pieces, because those pieces have left and they're somewhere in the non-ordinary realms getting medicine. You know, it's generally thought that the underworld, you're getting medicine there. This is general, you know. Generally, they're in the underworld because they're seeking safety. They're seeking safety there, so they're hanging out there, and we need to find out, we connect with them. Middle world, they're stuck in some other time, it's either a past life or something that was very traumatic that happened there that we connect with them. In the upper world, usually it's somebody that has an issue with being able to look at reality. They're always in like some fantasy land. And it's usually because of a case of a fallen hero or fallen heroine. So we, along with connecting with these soul pieces and helping them, providing them medicine with, you know, to help them come back, and working with the cardinal spaces as well in the sun to get soul energy as we're doing this. It's also a good idea to do limpias when you're having a trauma, when you're clearing out traumas. And one of the ways that we work with fire is to find out, you know, what else the soul energy needs, where the soul energy is at. Like if you want to find out what non-ordinary realm, if it's a past life, if it's an ancestral clearing, you can offer into the fire, you know, from the barrida, what else needs to be done, and start connecting and creating that relationship with the fire. It's a very ancient practice that's still done to this day. It's really beautiful. And hopefully we still keep it going. So, so some of the things we're going to be using desert sage, and you know, there's a lot of things too. I just want to mention a little thing about sage. There are so many different kinds of sages. So you know, because sometimes people like now people say sage and they think it's a bad word. Like no, use sage. Like what? Sage, like, don't hurt its feelings. Yes. White sage, definitely, you know, if you're going to use it, it's something that you grow and you love and you can cure. Yeah, don't buy it. But there's many different kind of sages that we use, and we use sage because it cleanses the mind, body, and spirit. And for this, I use desert sage. The desert sage, an additional quality of the desert sage is it's very resilient. And this is it's a very resilient plant. And it gives us resilience too, as we're doing the barrida as well. So, so I'm going to just mention a few things about the white fire basics, and I'll be describing it to you as we are doing it. So pay attention to the sounds. If you hear the fire crackling, that means it's time to ask a deeper question. Getting this, Eddie? It's time to ask a deeper question, because the fire is trying to get your attention. You know, the fire is like, ask me this, you need to go deeper in your question. There's something that you're not asking, and there's something that you're on the path, maybe, but you need to ask something else. You know, it's like trying to get your attention to ask something deeper about something. And watch it too. You know, watch it as it becomes more intense, especially too. At the beginning, it may start a little light, but once it starts getting going, then watch in the right directions that it burns and how it's burning as well. So just a couple things. If it becomes more intense and it's burning towards you, that's basically an affirmative of whatever you're asking. It's like, yes, you know, it's cleansing you in addition to that, and it's giving you insight into something that you're asking, something that you're saying. You know, when you're asking the fire, if you want to get something that's more profound, like something more specific, then you connect with the fire, and you connect with the fire, and you ask the fire and your ancestors, so whoever else you're working with, is to connect with you while you're dreaming, or connect with you when you're in a trance state. And something that I always like to do too, if I want to connect and get an answer with something, I leave an ofrenda, an offering, next to my bed. I will open up a bottle of oil, or I will put some rose water next to my bed, and I will connect with that, and I will take a moment and ask them to thank me. I'll just thank them. I'll thank them for connecting with me while I'm sleeping too, because it's believed that when we sleep, our donai, our soul energy travels, and it can travel into the realms of the non-ordinary realms, and we can connect with deeper messages of that as well. And I am going to be repeating the shamanic dream work classes sometime late next year. So we'll learn more about that, but that's just a very simple way. Or you can do it while you're doing a journey work, doing some meditations or doing some breath work or going out and connecting with the sun and asking for deeper messages. With the fire, you may feel intuitively of something, but my point is ask questions that are in the affirmative, like a yes or no. And then I'll get you something else, because it's something that you're making communication. That's what you're doing. You're starting communication, a relationship with the fire. And especially if it's your first time and if you haven't done too many fire limpias or connected with fire, you want to start like basics, and then you can get like in the more advanced communication. So just keep that in heart and mind when you're asking your questions initially. It's just a good idea, like initially with a yes or no, because then you can get a deeper understanding, and the universe will say, see, Erika, like I told you, it's a yes, it's a yes or a no. You'll get more confirmation, and you'll become more confident in working with the elements and making a deeper connection with them, because you'll get like a yes, and then something will happen later that day or that week that goes like, yes, it's a yes or it's a no. And then you'll go deeper and you'll continue developing your symbolic communication with the elements. So also too, if it burns evenly, like if it's just like burning everywhere nice and round and it's just nice, it basically means that you're on the right path. That's just like your even flow. Even flow, keep going what you're doing, don't stray from your path. It's an even flow. It's just like, it's practical, right? It's like looking, if it's burning evenly, then you're on the right path, it's even flow. And your journey will also take place with greater grace, and assuming you're doing your work. It'll just take place with greater grace. Your journey will just move forward with that. If the fire burns away from you, there's an issue with consistency. The fire is telling you, like, scaling that, like you're not being consistent, like what's happening, you need to be consistent with your work. And just pay attention and ask, do I need to be consistent with my work? You may notice that the fire then comes over to you, or there may be something else that's like, ask, what am I being consistent with? If you feel like you're being consistent, am I being consistent? Do I need to be more consistent with this? Yes or no? Do I need to be more consistent with that? Yes or no? And again, as you're starting your relationship, you want to think of questions that are a yes or a no, because that is how you build that relationship and that connection. And you can see it, like you can get confirmations in the outside world, and then you can develop questions, like more practical, like deeper questions. And if you ever work with me in a session, I'll show you more things with that. But if it's for you, like you're learning this, how to do this for yourself and for your friends and your clients, you want to start practical, okay? So let's see, where are we at here? Okay, we're doing good. All right, so I'm gonna have my very good friend come forward, and she's gonna help us with this part, and I'm gonna show you again how to do barrida with the desert sage. And she will introduce herself. I do the card.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erika, and I am an intuitive healing practitioner. I'm currently offering sessions for people who are dealing with anxiety and stress and pretty much emotional overwhelm. So my IG is Mariposa Mística, and I don't think you can see it anyway. So it's MARIPOSA, and I already misspelled it. So it's Mariposa_Mística. So you want to look me up. My name is Erika, by the way. You can find me by my name too. And you can book a 20-minute assessment session to see if I'm a good match for you, because you never know. So you're interested? Reach out, please.
All right. Okay. So, hey, can you do me a favor? In this, so I asked you for the desert sage. Desert sage, as we were sharing, we were talking about, is that the desert sage helps to cleanse and fortifies the mind, the body, the spirit, and it just brings resilience. it's a nice idea because if you're gonna do divination work, it's a nice idea too. You don't have to, but it's a nice idea. And especially, I mean, sometimes I do it because I start with a platica usually. And I'll talk a little bit about platicas in a second. So I get an understanding of what's going on, but since I know a lot about you and what's going on, but can you share a little bit about, what you've kind of been like, for the divination, what you would like to have questions, like a general theme of what you want to focus on?
If I'm doing, well, I think I need to be a little more dedicated to it, but if I'm doing the right thing, if I should change the way I've been doing things for my business or for my practice, and if there anything I can do to increase my resilience against frustration related to the business, because I'm really resilient in other ways, but I think related to my business, I'm a little more shy.
All right, perfect. So can you do me a favor and lie down, honey, please? Okay, now if it's dry, I would not recommend to put water in it. Especially if you're gonna do divination, because you don't want it wet. So I'm gonna put this bowl away, because you don't want to use water if you're gonna be doing divination, because it won't burn. Well, not very well anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna show you again, just as a recap, to show you how to work with the spray bottle and how to work with the Florida water. I'm gonna actually use my own specially made Florida water for this, along with the spray, okay? Now, as a reminder, if you're gonna do divination work, you wanna make sure you have one piece, and then one piece that you're gonna give the person or yourself to do the reading. But when you do the barrida, you wanna make sure everything is full, okay? So again, all right. So generally, you just want to get the front, right? You definitely want to get the head, you want to get the heart, you want to get the abdomen, the genitalia area. I was always taught to get the knees and like, not necessarily at the feet, but like in that direction, like set that intention that it blows. So if you're using a spray bottle initially, now if you're only going to use a spray bottle, I highly, highly recommend to use a rattle. The rattle shakes the energy from the energy bodies. Just like our ancestors also knew that we have an aura around us as well, energy bodies as well. And it shakes, so we shake it. Okay. So if you're going to be doing the blowing method, okay, remember, you don't let it get past your teeth. And you just get a little tiny bit. You don't necessarily need to do the rattle for that, but I'll go ahead and I'll show you. And if you haven't, I've connected with my other herbs, but if you haven't done it already, you take a moment to connect. You say a prayer. Like getting here, can you see that? To help remove any doubts, fears, and to show her the way. Open the pathways, so she can always do the things that bring her happiness, love, and joy. Okay, so I use my dominant hand, and I start in the middle.
Like Miguel feet all the way over there, and my reach the edge.
Okay. So, a couple of things I want to mention in terms of the sweeping. Sometimes I sweep a lot of times because I just feel that the person has like really, they're just they need a few more sweeps. I'll just say that. But sometimes I don't do it as often. Like I did part of just did one in the middle, I did one on the side, one on the sides, the arms, and then sometimes I'll do another one. But sometimes I'll do a lot more. Use again, just tune into what you feel is needed. So the bigger bundle, you put it in your pot. Okay, I just do it in the show. So the bigger bundle, you put it in your pot. The smaller one, you give it to either you take it if you're doing it for yourself. You're welcome. And of course, if you're doing it for yourself, you're going to use your red yarn. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to get your rubbing alcohol and you just put a splash of it. Okay. And then a couple handfuls of Epsom salt. Okay. So put it here. Okay. So and as you're as the fire is burning, take a moment to imagine a light of love from your heart connecting to the fire and thanking the fire for showing you the pathway and also clearing the pathway too. Anything that you need to see that needs to be seen, okay? So you get your matchstick very carefully and you put it in the fire pot. That is okay. And you give it a little bit to burn. It looks like it's starting nicely. Okay, you want to start with your question then? And say it, make sure it's loud so we can hear too.
Am I doing the right things related to my business? Am I in the right path for my business?
So it looks like so the fire is burning towards her. It's a yes. It's an affirmative of a yes. It's even. It's burning very even. There's a little bit here. There's something here that's going on here, like flickering here away from you. But there's issues with the consistency here. It's just like flickering.
Do I need to do any clearings on myself or related to my business?
Oh, wow. So that's yeah, that's a yes. That's a definite yes. And like when she did that, she was saying, do I need to do more clearings? The fire went like that. Like, yes. So okay, there's definite there. And now it's turning a little bit away. There's some issues there with consistency because it's low. See, and you also look to see the direction that it's burning because the direction now, it continues to start burning away from her.
Do I know what to do or do I need to ask for someone's help?
So, well, you asked different questions. It's burning away from you, but you asked a different question. Which question do you have? Say
Do I know what to do to help my business?
Go, make an offer. Oh, that's a yes, no. Because it was like blowing, it was burning away from you, that was a yes, so you know what to do. Definitely know what to do. And I see that other But there's some inconsistency, now it's burning away from you.
So I need to be more consistent to help it grow.
Yes, I got one of
Time's up. Please deposit 25 cents more. Well, maybe 25 bucks, not cents.
So you got that, right? Yes, thank you. There was a, yes, you need to do more clearings, there needs to be consistency, and you know what to do. Milo, could you get the fire with some? So we're gonna read the plot in a little bit. My husband's gonna put some water in it. And Eddie, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
everybody.
participating. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about that. So I wanna mention something about platicas. Platicas are essentially heart straightening talks. Usually I do, there's sometimes, usually, let's say usually, I'll keep it at that. Usually I do platicas, heart straightening talks before I do a limpia for someone. Because I get insight of what else is needed, what else needs to go on. There's a couple people that I work with that I've been working with for some while that will like come in and be like, I need a limpia like now. And then we'll have a platica, and I know, because there's something that happened, I'm like, oh, okay, sure. But usually I like to do the platicas, heart straightening talks at the beginning. And, you know, make sure if you're gonna be doing a platica is to just give that space, give the space give the person the space to talk. Because you really need to tune in into what they're saying and also listen to the energy of what they're saying and ask questions to confirm what you're assessing, what you're feeling into is spot on. That way you can provide a limpia for them that is more on point. And if you're doing that for someone else rather than just simply for yourself. And it's also going to give you insight too, because like I know what was going on with Eddie, so I if it was just me and her like alone, I'd ask maybe some other questions too. But you can ask more spot on questions, and you can help the person ask questions too. So, oh, okay, well, okay, so so. I'm gonna actually just go ahead and it was soak for, did you put, okay, soak for a little while. So it was soak for a little while. So I wanna show you a little bit, I'm gonna ask you to put some more water in a little bit. So I'm gonna show you a little bit to what it looks like initially, because you saw it initially what it looked like. And you see there's a lot of residuals right here. And it was at the spots that was burning away from her, because she was like sitting here on this side. There's a lot of spots there. I don't know. There's some residuals there, buddy.
Yeah, I thought you wanted to see that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I do. So there's some issues there, and reading it too, you know, sometimes I'll let it soak there for 5 minutes. It just varies a little bit, but you can see right from the get-go, because as the first time around it was completely clear. The second time it's just like, okay, and it's no big deal. It just means more limpias need to be done. That's all. And they need to be done cyclically, like regularly. So that's a way of reading the pots. And there's, of course, a lot more different things that you can read into, depending if there's different shapes and after the platica, but that's, you know, after you continue working and practicing with the fire and learning what to do. So, you know, as I mentioned that in curadorismo traditions, it's still believed that our pahwawtztli, like for example, you know, the feather fan, and calf woman, my drum, have a soul energy, a soul animating energy. And another way that we use limpias, fire limpias, for example, are to help cleanse and rejuvenate our pahwawtztli as well. And there's different reasons why we want to do this, like we renew their animating energy, and this was done a lot of times they're re-identified, or you may read them in different texts as termination rites, because what they're doing is they're animating the energy of buildings, of spaces, and it was done because, like, for example, like stelae, which are stone slabs in a lot of the temples, especially in Maya temples, in the classic period, they put stela like in front of them. They would basically tell you the history, what was going on, who was who, what was what, and they would do fire offerings to them because it was believed that they were like toasting them, they were like recycling energy and then bringing them back to life, rebirthing. So it's a nice idea to do this for your living space, and also it's a nice idea to do, for example, your feather fans, or like to do it for your, if you have like a lot of your sacred tools in a specific room, is to do it for a white fire limpia. I'm going to show you how to do it for a specific tool, how to do a white fire limpia for that in a second. So why would you need to do a fire limpia for your tools, for your pahwawtztli, for your sacred tools? Is some of the times you want to do it because you want to remove the energy signature from other people. Maybe it's a new item and you don't know who's handled it or whatnot, or you want to like give it a birthday. Yeah, or maybe you broke up with somebody and you both shared it, and I don't know, just you're longer, maybe it's your birthday, maybe you're doing a new job, maybe you're in a new relationship. Whether you realize it or not, if you have a tool, whether it's a rattle or whether it's even like a whistle or a dress that you've been using a lot in ceremonies, it more than likely has, I need the pot again, Mother? Yes. Thank you, ma'am. So it more than likely has it's a mirror image, it has an imprint of your soul energy. Because the more and more we work with it, it's like it starts reflecting like a mirror, and we starts taking on our soul animating energy. So if you've had like a breakup, if you've been going through something like difficult, or you're going through something new and beautiful, it's a nice idea to get that item and to also honor that as well, or clear that item as well. Just thinking of that, this is one that my feather fan that I use quite a bit, Sochi flower, and we're very close, and I like to cleanse this, I like to actually cleanse it monthly. So there's, and I'll show you what it looks like too. So there's different reasons why we may want to as well. Also our medicine bundles, our cloths or our hides that we put a lot of our medicine in it too, whether it's divination cards or it's crystals. There's actually, for the New Year's festival, they do this too in Maya. They actually have their medicine bundles and they put it over a fire to basically honor and cleanse and rejuvenate the spirit and the essence energy of our items. Can I have one? Thank you. Okay. So, okay. Another thing too is to do this is if you're experiencing a vibrational shift, or if there's something maybe you've gone through a depression or whatnot, this is a nice thing to do for your sacred tools. So I'm going to mention a few things for this. And when you do this, when you offer this, when you're renewing your sacred items, or maybe, for example, you just got a new feather fan and you want to honor that feather fan and welcome the feather fan into your family, into your home, you want to think about what kind of plant, the properties of the plant that you're going to be using for your prepared fire, for your prepared white fire limpia. So I'm going to give you some examples. So for example, licorice root increases great fortune and it's wonderful for divination work. So if you read cards or if you do tarot, it's a nice thing to do if you're getting a new cards to use licorice root. Peppermint, for example, enhances prosperity, and also it's really good for intuition. Also brings clarity as well, and enhances any kind of like work that we do, any limpia or magical work that we do. Echinacea flowers, They help to strengthen any of our intentions, our manifestation. So echinaceas are really wonderful for that. So my point is anything that you want to empower your sacred item with, share that essence energy. Is you want to use that for your prepared fire, so you can empower that for your tools, your sacred tools. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's something that for your white fire limpia, you want to make sure for this your pot's nice and clean. So 2 handfuls of Epsom salt. And I'm going to use licorice root. And again, it's dry, right? It has to be dry. Just get a little bit here. Even the fire. So a splash of rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to use Sochi here, just renew her sacred essence energy and take a moment to connect with your sacred item. Thank your pahwawtztli for all of their work that they do in helping to cleanse you, your family, your friends, your loved ones. And then what you do is you put a match into the pot very gently, and I'm going to show you how and when to do it. When you put the sacred item over the fire, that is. Okay. You want to make sure it's already gone, like a little bit. You give it a little bit of time to make sure it's at its peak. And you'll notice when it's at its peak, especially the white fire limpia. And what you do is you put your sacred item and you make sure you touch it only at the orange marks. So it's not going to go, the blue will burn it. But if you put it over here, you say a prayer. Gracias. Get the top and the bottom, all sides. And then you can put it into your altar, on your altar. And it's just a very simple way to do that, right? And fire side, muchísimas gracias, Shri. So it's at its peak, and you get one more. Bawe, bawe, so, and then you put your beautiful pahwawtztli on your altar. So another way to cleanse our sacred tool is with the sakumerio. So you want to make sure that you use whether it's a brazier, a steel brazier, or you use a clay pot. That the clay pot has been prepared so it can actually handle fire, or else it will crack. And you gotta ask, can you actually put a charcoal tablet in it? So for the sakumerio, when you do a sakumerio, and I'm gonna give it to you so you can put it outside, my love. You want to, all chocolate tablets are not the same. I like using Swift Light. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but I always have really good fortune with them. So with the charcoal tablet, what you want to do before you put anything on for the charcoal tablet for the sakumerio is this slide here. Okay. When you light it, before you put anything on it, you have to make sure it burns from one side, it sizzles from one side to the other side. And I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see before you put anything on it, because if you put anything on it too soon, it will not burn. And a part of that when you're using the sakumerio with the charcoal tablet is you want to make sure that whatever you put on there, that your charcoal tablet is completely turned to ash, because it's part of the ofrenda, it's part of the offering, and you know that it's been received, but it's completely turned into ash. If it hasn't, it's okay. It just needs to be done just a few more times, that's all, or a couple more times. So you get your matchstick, light one end, and you put it so let's see here. See, I don't know if you could see here, but you want to make sure it burns from one side to the other. Okay, so it's now, I can see it's all burned there. Okay, this is then when you put your offerings inside. Now you could do a combination of different things. Traditionally, what we use is we use copal. Copal is resin from a tree. It's found very much still in Yucatan. They put it everywhere now. So copal is resin from a tree, and I love using copal. And you'll find the thing that works for you. What you like working with. Copal, it's believed that in addition to cleansing a space, that it's also an ofrenda, it's also an offering for the space and for the sacred tools that you're using. So if you have a new tarot deck, or even a new crystal, or a feather fan, or even a upi, like a dress, it's a nice thing to also, it's a nice thing to also smudge our clothes, because they're in ceremonies, they're constantly working with us, right? Is to actually blow when you get something new, nice ceremonial pieces to offer, copal, or offering something, and go ahead and I'll put a copal in there. First, I will start with the licorice root, because you can also use dry herbs for it as well. And then I will put the copal on there. So now we are going to smudge half woman, my drum. That's another way we're talking about how we renew the essence energies of our living space. And before you use it, you want to make sure, it already starts burning, it already starts smoking a little bit, or a good amount. So I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see what it looks like. I put the licorice root on there. Okay. So what we normally do traditionally, and I'll talk a little bit about feather fans. That's fine. Okay. So for this, you know, depending if you're doing it, I get a little bit and I breathe it into that, and that helps to cleanse the energy of it. Also too, if you're gonna be using sacramentos for your living space, is you wanna make sure that you'll be able to hold it so it doesn't burn your hand. So if you're using a razor that has a little something to hold it, this has a nice little handle here so I can go around. When I'm doing sacramentos for my spaces, I go to the four corners, I go around, I say a prayer, I sing a prayer, it's part of the ofrenda, the offering, and I make sure that I get the four corners and I start spiraling into the very center. Doing the sacramento. Depending on, it varies, because if you're doing your whole entire house, yes, it's customary to open up the doors. And if you're just cleansing a room and you're if you live with somebody that doesn't like the smoke, I would say leave the door, everything closed, and when you're done with the sacramento, then have the fan on, open the door, open up the windows before you open up the door, that way it smokes out of the room, so it clears out the room and the people in your house don't get bothered by it. My love, can I ask you to take this outside for me, please? Thank you. Okay, so let me talk to you a little bit. We have a little bit more time, because I want to make sure I say time for questions as well. So barridas with fans and feathers. So if you know, I always have my feather fans. I leave them on my altar. And it's the reason for that is because you want to always have your feather fan ready. It's an altar. I'm always cleansing my space, so my altar is always getting cleansed, and I'm making sure that my fan is always getting cleansed as well. So you put it on your altar because after you cleanse somebody, you're letting your feather fan recharge, or you cleanse yourself. You know, you cleanse yourself to do that, to cleanse and clear energy. You want to make sure your feather fan is always ready to go and it's being cleansed and it's being loved in the meantime as well. So for feather fans, when you're doing a barrida with the feather fan, you don't necessarily need to use a rattle. Because the feathers, it's believed to do that, the feathers blow the energy away. You could also use a spray and then blow the energy away, you know, blowing the energy away from that, because it's believed that the feathers along with this blow away the energy. And, you know, depending on what kind of feathers you use, you're also gracing, you're also blessing yourself or that person with those gifts. So for example, this is a pheasant fan, and pheasant helps to move and shake cell energy. Crows tend to be very generous too and go around and they give feathers. And in terms of using for barridas for feathers, you don't necessarily need to use a feather fan. You can use one feather, you can use 2 feathers, 3 feathers, or you can start making your own feather with a collection of feathers that the birds give you. It just depends, and you know, they give us feathers a lot of times when we sing to them, when we honor them, when we have pictures of them on our altar. They'll give to us. Just yesterday, I was talking about, there's a little family of crows building a nest outside our house. I was so excited, and telling my husband how excited that I was when we started taking our dog for a walk. Like right in front of our walk, it's like there was a beautiful crow feather, like right there. Like, oh, it's like they give us, they understand animal medicine. They understand with that. So that's pretty much it that I have here I covered everything here that I have for barridas. I do want to make just a couple announcements, and then I will open up the window for questions. And if you have questions, please submit them. Happy to answer them. How are we doing with the questions, honey? Do we have questions? Okay, okay. Okay, just want to make sure. So go ahead and submit if you have any questions. So I want to make a couple announcements, please. Huh? What?
No.
No question? Oh, okay. So I want to make a couple announcements. So on the 1st of August, I'm going to be doing it's going to be a free talk, book signing for animal medicine. And we're going to be journeying into the non-ordinary realms and connecting with animal medicine, connecting with the spirits of the animal. That's going to be the 1st of August. If you'd like to join, you can go to the website realizeyourbliss.com, and the URL link there is there as well. So yes, I hope you join. And my book, Animal Medicine, is going to be coming out in July. I believe the 13th of July, that's when it's going to actually be coming out, but you can pre-order it. If you go to realizeyourbliss.com under the books, you can see where to pre-order it. So that's super exciting. The 1st of August, we're going to be doing a book signing. And those of you who are local, you can come here and have your book signed, or you can just watch it online for free. The 1st of August. So that's the announcement that I have for tomorrow. And just to mention a few things on curanderismo. So curanderismo, you know, a lot of it is, it's a practice that comes from indigenous, the Mesoamerican indigenous peoples. And this is something that I focus a lot in my books, because there's been a lot of times where it's like, oh, it's very eclectic and it comes from different sources. Yes. You know, today, for example, when I do the barridas, there's a lot of santeros that work with rum for the barridas. If that's something that resonates with you, do that. Okay, do that. Work with rum. Work with whatever it is that resonates with you. The essence of limpias in these traditions, it comes from the indigenous peoples of the Americas. The term curanderex is actually was given to us by the missionaries. You know, there's like, we healed some of them, and they're like, oh, okay, we heal. Cura, the root word of curanderismo is heal. So they identified us as healers. But our practice, it has thousands of different types of specialties and nuances. You know, there was even healers who were shapeshifters. There's been, Motelina talks a lot about this too, and Ruiz de Larcon, he's a 17th century historian, missionary, who talks about recording of a lady who was having her husband was healing. This lady hired a curandera to heal her husband, and he actually shapeshifted into a dog. He was in the room, it was a dog, and she didn't recognize him. She didn't know that he was a shapeshifter, and started like beating him and ran out. And he came back and he's like, why were you trying to hurt me? Apparently that was one of the things that he did, is he healed when he was a shapeshifter. So there were a lot of different specialties in this. And in curanderismo, it's very eclectic, and it's just like we've all come into like one thing. We use divination work, we use healing practices, we use herbs, we use water, all these things. So it's something to keep in heart and mind, and it really does come from the indigenous peoples of the Americas. A lot of these records are there, they're just in there, and we gotta look for them. Was there something you were saying, Mela? Okay, so we have a question. Okay, do you have information for the menstrual cycle? How do you have a lighter flow? Okay. Okay, well, this is not really relevant to this, what we've been talking about, but I'll address it in some way. So there's a lot of different plants that you can use. You can use rose geranium. You can use licorice root. A lot of the roots, dandelion root. Also, as well, raspberry red leaf. That helps to regulate. You can make a tincture with that. You can put it in a amber bottle. And actually, I'm going to have a Yerbanismo class starting in June, from June going to September, teaching how to make tinctures, how to make cold and hot teas, how to make syrups, how to make spritzers, how to make liniments, compresses, for everything, you know, for physical ailments, for magical purposes, for healing, all these different healing purposes. But as I mentioned, you can use red raspberry, you can use rose geranium, dandelion root, licorice root, and there's a few others that are pretty amazing, but you get those four, you put them, you fill them up in a amber bottle, and then about 80%, because they expand, and then you can put the rest of it with vodka, it doesn't matter, any kind of vodka, and then you put it in a bottle, you seal it, you put it somewhere where it doesn't get any light, you put it in your closet, nice and dark, every day you shake it. Every day you shake it and you keep it in that dark place. I would say keep it there for 4 weeks, then afterwards you strain it, and that gives you the tincture, and that will help with your menstrual cycles, it will help to regulate it. And I don't know what specific issues you have, but those are generally good ones. I make a tincture of that myself for hormonal balance. But if you tune into the Yerbarismo classes, last Sunday of the month, we'll definitely cover a lot of different herbs for that as well. Okay, so did you also use the red yarn on the palm when you're doing a barrida on someone else? So the question is, did I also use the red yarn on the palm when I'm doing a barrida on someone else? No. The reason for that, it's believed, and even various traditions around the world, like for example, acupuncture, that you don't give acupuncture yourself because it comes back into you. The red yarn stops it from coming back into your hand and into you when you're doing it for yourself. When you're doing it for someone else, it doesn't mean that we're immune to picking up energies. Yes, every day I give myself a wet fire limpia. Every day I spray myself with Florida water. Once a month, I give myself baños. I take a bath with different cleansing herbs, 2 cups of Epsom salt. I put oils in it, I put crystals in it. Every month I give myself baños at least once a month. You know, I take baths with limpia soaps. I do the work, so it's not necessarily, no, I don't use the red yarn on that. It's believed that it's a cycle of energy, like you're taking it in and it cycles back into you. And many traditions, as I mentioned, you know, acupuncture, I had a student who was an acupuncturist, and she's like, oh my God, we do that too. It's like also our traditions, we believe that as well. It's believed that it comes back in there, but when you do it for other people, no, you don't need to use a red yarn. Sometimes it's believed too that if you're pregnant, you do that. Women who are pregnant, I've seen curanderics who are pregnant that they do that as well because they have a baby that's coming into them, that's growing in them, another beating. But when you're doing it for other people, no, normally you don't. I do tie a red yarn though when it's an eclipse. That's also still common that you'll see a lot of us wear a red yarn or a red bracelet on us, or have an arrowhead touching our skin, a black obsidian arrowhead. But no, I never use a red yarn for anyone else. So I think so that's pretty much like the talk of it. And I just really want to thank the Achuchas for, you know, helping me to encouraging everybody, holding space for all of us here. And I also want to mention too that if you're interested to learn how to do egg limpias, I do have a video. I posted it in November, how to do egg limpias and how to read egg limpias. And I also have a TikTok there on how to do egg limpias. And I'm also going to be teaching some of that too for tomorrow. And, you know, when you're doing a platica with someone, that's when it's really important to the platica, because you will understand what the egg means and how to read the egg after the platica, because you will have more context. I had one time, for example, I had a session with somebody who was having a soul retrieval and she was being born. You know, she always kind of felt like, well, her mom didn't necessarily, she was a boobed baby, and her mom told her a lot that she was an accident. It wasn't very nice. And when we did the session in our journey work, it was on connecting with her as a baby, having that essence of that baby come back into her. and welcoming that soul piece back into her body. And then afterwards we sealed it, and when we did the egg limpia, guess what? The egg looked like a little fetus. So that's also really important too in the platicas, and I think I'm going to, sure.
You want to-
Okay, that's my next question. Bioenergetic feedback, is this similar to what you practice? I have no idea what that is, sorry. Sorry. Curanderismo, you know, curanderismo, again, we're talking about indigenous practices. Bioenergetic, we knew about energy, we know about energy, we know about biology. But I don't know. We were doing brain surgery.
There's an introduction to curanderismo on the website.
And there is an introduction to curanderismo on realizeyourbliss.com, so you can find out what that is all about. A free introduction. You can learn more about me. I'm a practicing curandera with over 20 plus years of mentoring and practicing as a curandera. So you can learn all about curanderismo there. And again, it's an indigenous-based practice that we work a lot with nature. We work a lot with elements. So I'm gonna just go ahead, and if there's no questions, I'm gonna go ahead and close up and say thank you so much, the Chuchas, for having me, and thank you for being such wonderful collaborating. You're so easy to work with. I love working with people like that. That's just easy peasy. Thank you, and have a beautiful day. And I'm really excited for the rest of the presenters, and I hope you enjoy yourself, and we all continue to support the Chuchas, all the work that they do, and buy your books locally and support local bookstores, for sure. So thank you guys so much. Have a beautiful